April 13th, 1970, Houston, Texas. The night was still, the city wrapped in a blanket of silence. Inside his modest home, Arturo Campos, born and raised in Laredo, Texas, had just settled into his favorite chair, the soft hum of the ceiling fan, the only sound accompanying his thoughts. He had grown up in a hard-working Mexican-American family where perseverance and attention to detail were prized, traits that had carried him all the way to NASA. The day had been long, filled with meetings and calculations, but now he could finally relax. Then the phone rang. Startled, Campos reached for the receiver. "Hello? Apollo 13, came the voice on the other end, tense and urgent. "We've had a problem." His heart skipped a beat. Apollo 13. The mission to the moon. The words "we've had a problem" echoed in his mind. He was the electrical power subsystem manager for the lunar module Aquarius. This was no routine call. Without hesitation, he grabbed his jacket and keys. As he stepped out the door, the gravity of the situation began to settle in. 3 astronauts were depending on him. Hundreds of thousands of miles away in the cold vacuum of space, their lives were in his hands. Arriving at NASA's Mission Control Center, Campos was greeted by a scene of controlled chaos. Engineers hunched over consoles, faces illuminated by the glow of monitors. Flight controllers barked updates, their voices a mix of urgency and determination. The air was thick with tension. Gene Kranz, the flight director, approached him. "Campos, we have a crisis." The service module oxygen tank exploded. "The command module's power is out. Life support is compromised." Campos nodded, his mind already racing through possible solutions. He moved to his console, his fingers flying over the keyboard as he analyzed the data streaming in. The lunar module, designed for 2 men for less than 2 days on the moon, now had to sustain 3 men for 4 days. Every calculation had to be precise. "Every watt counts," Campos muttered to himself. Every switch matters. Aboard the spacecraft, Commander Jim Lovell, Command Module pilot Jack Swigert, and Lunar Module pilot Fred Hayes were still absorbing the shock of the explosion. "Houston, we've had a problem here," Swigert had reported. "Copy that," came the response from Mission Control. Inside the lunar module, the astronauts adjusted to their new reality. The cabin was cold, the air thin. Every system was powered down to conserve energy. The silence was deafening. "Jim, my fingers are freezing," Swigert complained as he flipped switches according to Mission Control's instructions. "Keep going, Jack," Lovell replied. "This is what keeps us alive." Back in Houston, Campos and his team worked tirelessly. They analyzed the lunar module's systems, searching for ways to keep the crew alive and conserve enough power for re-entry. Every decision was critical. "CO2 levels are rising faster than expected," someone reported. Campos frowned. "We need to reroute power to the environmental system, but just enough to keep the scrubbers running." "No more. Every extra amp we give there is an amp we won't have for the re-entry sequence." As the days passed, the situation grew more dire. The astronauts were cold, tired, and running out of supplies. The power-up sequence for the command module was the only hope for a safe return. Campos and his team spent hours in simulators, running through every possible scenario. They devised a strict power-up sequence to ensure the command module's systems came online without overloading the limited batteries. "Switch on the main bus first," Campos instructed during a dry run. Then connect the auxiliary battery. Wait 30 seconds before enabling the guidance computer. Any deviation could be catastrophic. One junior engineer muttered, half-joking, "We're trusting this to 3 guys in space, tired, cold, and probably hallucinating from CO2 buildup." Campos didn't smile. "They can follow instructions." "They have to. And we will make sure they do." The moment of truth arrived. The command module had to power up and re-enter Earth's atmosphere. The sequence had to be flawless. "Power sequence received," Lovell reported from space. "Main bus on. Auxiliary battery connected. Guidance computer activating. All systems nominal." "Here we go," Kranz said, his voice tight with anticipation. The command module plunged into Earth's atmosphere, heat shield glowing under the intense friction. Communication cut out briefly. The room in mission control fell silent. Then the voice came through. Odyssey here. We're through. We're okay. Cheers erupted in mission control. Engineers embraced. Some wept. Campos leaned back in his chair, exhausted but relieved. The numbers had held. The astronauts were alive. Later that year, Campos and his team were awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom. But for Campos, the true reward was knowing his calculations, his focus, and his tireless work had directly saved lives. He returned to NASA, mentoring younger engineers, always emphasizing precision, teamwork, and calm under pressure. When he passed away in 2001, his work had remained largely uncelebrated outside NASA circles, but his legacy endured. In 2022, NASA honored his contributions by naming a mannequin used in the Artemis I mission, Commander Arturo Campos. The mannequin was designed to test radiation exposure and other hazards on the Artemis I mission, a fitting tribute to the man who had once saved lives with his ingenuity and dedication.